Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I am 50, and once I turned 50, I wanted to do something about my intentions to make this decade of my life great. So I came up with a slogan, Slay 50s. And I got this little booklet right here, and inside on every single page is my ideas about how I'm going to be slaying my 50s. Got a little purpose statement on every single page, action items, goals. It's awesome. I wrote down my values, I wrote down my aspirations, they became my goals, and regularly I'm checking in with it because I am convinced that intentions alone will destroy me. If I only keep my values, aspirations, and goals in my head and say, one day I hope by the end of this decade I will be a sorry mess. So I'm working hard, and I've got more clarity, and I've got a plan, and I've got follow through, and I am going to slay my 50s. I'm slaying my intentions. I'm just a different kind of slay. I'm killing my intentions, and I am embracing action. What about you? Do you have a plan or a vision, idea, some kind of wish for your life this year, next 5 years, whatever? If you've got an idea of something that you want to do with your life and you've come up with an idea of how to motivate yourself to put it into action, then please pause the video and share it with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. In this text, we focus on a comparison between a life of silent intention and a life of outspoken activity. James 2, 14 to 17. What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye and have a good day. Stay warm, eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or any clothing. What good does that do? So, you see, faith itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and it's useless. Now, someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds, but I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. For this video, I'm going to try my best to answer a question. What's the difference between faith and good intentions? Heading into my 50s, I was tired of my good intentions about myself. I've started a new career within the last few years, and I've set up a practice, and this practice has to sustain my life, and right now it's kind of not. I need to keep on working on it and growing it. I also want to have a healthier body, I want to be more intentional about my relationships. I've got a bunch of stuff on my list of things that I want to move from intention to actions. Intentions, well, they're pretty damaging. When we have good intentions, it can give us an emotional boost in our brain and lead us to believe that we're good people, that we're doing okay, and we get those happy feelings, and then we move on to real life. Intentions can make us feel good about ourselves, but they don't actually produce anything at all that's of value. They're only useful if they're a springboard into activity. It's very similar with faith. Faith is useless unless it's a springboard into the activity of being a Jesus follower. The biggest theme that's jumping out to me in this text is the damaging effect of someone who has a faith that is little more than intention. I think this text shows us what's at stake when faith never makes it past that stage of intention. And I think it also tells us what to do when we spot a faith that is simply at that intention level and never makes it to the action level. I'm pretty sure this text tells us this is what we can do about it. So, as we look at this, I want to start by focusing on the word deeds, because in this text, deeds are pretty much everything and anything that brings the belief that's inside of us to the outside of us. And in this text, if the belief that is inside of you doesn't get out of you, then there's no power in that belief. It's dead inside of you. This is a really big deal because as a Jesus follower, I'll just talk about myself. as a Jesus follower, my hope is in the resurrection at Jesus' second coming. The resurrection is a big miracle. Jesus' second coming is a big miracle. And there's nothing at all that I can do to jumpstart the resurrection or inspire Jesus to come back sooner. I have no leverage at all to hold over Jesus and force him to include me in the resurrection when he comes back. The only option I have, if I want to be included in God's plan for whatever comes after this experience right now in this world, the only thing that I have to latch onto is my faith in Jesus. So faith is a really, really big deal. And since faith is a really big deal, I kind of want to know that I've got the right kind of faith, because this text is showing us that there's more than just one kind of faith. I'm not talking about the object of my faith. I'm talking about the faith itself, which is kind of weird to think about if it's your first time considering this. There's a good kind of faith, and believe it or not, there's a bad kind of faith. The good kind of faith is faith that actually works and gets you to a place in the resurrection. The bad kind of faith is the kind of faith that doesn't get you a place in the resurrection. That's horrible. I mean, this is totally what this text is pointing to. Is my faith alive and the kind of faith that's going to be useful at Jesus' second coming and at the resurrection? Or is my faith dead? It's not going to be useful to me at all. There's another way to say this that's a little easier to consider, and that's to go back and talk about intentions. Intending to take a degree and actually taking a degree is the difference between qualifying for a job you want or not. Intending to ask someone on a date and actually asking someone on a date is the difference between this dreamy kind of loneliness and this potential of finding someone to share your life with. Intending to exercise and actually exercising is shown in how your body looks and its ability to perform. And man, that one is really bugging me right now. Almost 4 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with DVT, and I haven't been able to exercise for 4 weeks. I'm just kind of playing it safe, and my body is showing the signs, and I hate it. Intending and doing are two very different things. Intentions lead to no results at all if that's where we stay. Doing is what produces the results, and of course I'm saying stuff that's obvious, and I think you're following me. That concept of intentions having to lead to activity is the concept of this text. Belief can be just the intention to follow Jesus. Actually following Jesus is where we want our faith to be. If our belief just stays inside of us, it's just the intention of believing in Jesus, but it's not believing in Jesus. If our belief that's inside of us doesn't somehow come out as the activity of maybe saying no to all the other options for spirituality, then the belief inside of us is only the intention to follow Jesus, but it's not actually following Jesus. If the belief that's inside of us isn't shaping our behavior in a way that demonstrates grace and some form of love to the people around us, then it's only the intention to follow Jesus, but not actually following Jesus. Belief needs to move past the intention to follow Jesus, and it has to grow into the actual lifestyle of following Jesus. And for those of us who are embracing a lifestyle of following Jesus, it also means talking about him, using our words. In this text, the use of the word deeds refers to the need of expressing what's on the inside, doing something that's on the inside. Talking is a deed, communicating is a deed. And so, to really thicken what's at stake here, if we are of the mindset that talking about Jesus is based on a spiritual gift, and you might say, I just don't have that spiritual gift to talk to people about Jesus. Okay, this is a big deal. What kind of faith is that? What kind of faith is the kind of faith that stays on the inside and says nothing to the people around you about engaging with them about Jesus? And yet it can be so bold as to say, yes, but I'm going to have a part in the resurrection. I'm a silent partner. Here's what James is saying. How can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I'm going to show you my faith by my good deeds. He actually says, some people have faith, Others have good deeds. I don't have the gift of talking to people about Jesus, but I do have the gift of doing something other. Some will look at this text and say the word communication isn't in this text, so talking and evangelism, it's not there, so it doesn't count. In this text, it talks about Abraham and Rahab. Not in the one that I read, but in this chapter, it talks about Abraham and Rahab. Both were communicators. Abraham communicated to his family that God told him to go for a really long walk, and God would tell him to stop when he got there. He had to tell people that what God told him to do. He told them, and then he did the stuff with the people. And that's when God declared that he had faith. Rahab had to tell people something to act on her belief that God was fighting on behalf of the new Jewish nation. She had to use her words, and then she had to do something. And that's how she was identified as the only person in her city to be spared. In this text, deeds include both words and activity, and need to. You can't have one without the other, it's both. And you may be asking, why on earth am I pausing to focus on this? Okay, because you're bumping into one of my pet peeves. After 3 decades of leading the church, I am truly tired of people telling me talking about Jesus is a gift, and I don't have that gift. I'm tired of people saying to me, share the gospel, and if necessary, use words. You can't share the gospel without using words. Now listen closely. That kind of activity is a demonstration that you don't have the right kind of faith. Your belief is simply the intention to follow Jesus, but it's not actually following Jesus. I mean, how are you going to tell a pastor, if you're a churchgoer, Pastor, we can't afford to pay you, and you'll probably have to fast a few days a week because you won't be able to afford groceries, and we'll be calling you all through the night, so you better keep your phone on beside your pillow because we're going to have a crisis. And you can't take any days off because we're going to need you. And by the way, we're also not going to say a word to anyone about Jesus. We're going to trap you inside this box of a building called the church so that you can be present for our needs without us really paying you. And you also have to go into the community and tell people about Jesus on our behalf. Are you sure that's the kind of faith you want to show Jesus when he's dishing out the resurrection? Are you sure that claiming you don't have the gift to talk to people about Jesus is the kind of faith that demonstrates that you qualify as having the right kind of faith to be part of the resurrection? So yeah, after 3 decades of pastoring, I've got some pet peeves. Okay, so back to the main point. Our faith can't only be left at the level of intention. We got to do something about it. We got to say something about it. We need to do both those things. If our faith is only inside of us and people can't see it and people can't hear it, what happens is we have a faith that's kind of dead. And a faith is kind of dead. How optimistic should we be at the time of the resurrection? A faith that's only intention doesn't do any good to you and doesn't do any good to anybody else. If we believe in Jesus, that intention needs to become activity. If we intend to be a Jesus follower, we need to follow that up with actually being a Jesus follower. Okay, so maybe not a really exciting and uplifting interpretation in this video. I hope you have interpreted this text differently because it'll give us a broader perspective when we meet and discuss the text this Sunday. So here's my summary. Please don't keep your faith private. That's just keeping it at the level of intention. Please act on your faith. Live as a Jesus follower and talk to people about Jesus. Okay, that's it from me to you. For now, would you please like, would you please share and subscribe? I'm not sure that anybody's going to like and share and subscribe based on this video. If you'd like to, please ask for the link. We're meeting twice this Sunday, once at 10:30 a.m. and once at 6 o'clock p.m. 6 o'clock p.m. is just for men. For community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God.